This is Sammy. His peak rank is Immortal and he's looking to improve his Valorant play today. And this is Padiwan. He's a Radiant level coach that we've been working with who peaked top 20 on the ladder. But just how much can a Radiant level player teach somebody who has already hit Immortal? Well, it turns out the answer is a lot. I paired these two up for a live coaching session where Padiwan would backseat Sammy's decisions and try to help him recognize how he can play Valorant more effectively. Although Sammy is an Immortal level player, there is still a lot that anyone can learn from what Padiwan is telling him, and that's why I broke down all of the best things that he mentioned throughout this game so that we can all improve ourselves. However, if you did want to catch the full VOD of the game available on our website, that, as well as the recap of the game afterwards, will all be available for your viewing, so be sure to check that out on SkillCapped.com, link in the description below. For this game, Sammy is going to be playing on Breeze though, which is a massive map with lots of opportunities to take map control. Taking map control can be really important because it's going to make it a lot more difficult for the enemy team to pull off executes or rotate if they need to. One great way to do this on a map like Breeze is by flanking. On maps that are a little bit more claustrophobic, like Split, you won't find yourself flanking nearly as often. But on Breeze, this is actually a very common strategy, and you'll actually notice how on their offense, the enemy Jet is going to abuse this tactic obnoxiously well. This is what you'll see Padiwan is trying to get Sammy to execute on during his defensive half. So let's take a listen in.
Viper's here.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Viper's wall.
Viper wall.
The hunt begins.
There's like 3 there last side.
That's so confusing.
Okay, that's
calling
fine.
out Viper.
So one thing to take note is they're gonna probably be rushing B maybe this next round because
Lower
we're
numbers,
almost twice in a
anything can
row.
still happen.
I
Remember
would
that.
play closer to A main with the gun, so like yeah, Vandal. They don't have a Sentinel at all, so you can actually get a big flank off here. So if you play close A main, you're gonna listen to footsteps, you're not gonna peek. If there's no sounds, then you can kind of just run through it all. If you hear a sound, you need to get away quick, or just walk away or hide behind something.
Isolate and exterminate.
Yeah, don't hold W. Wait until you hear sounds. Okay, then go. There's
They
no
have
sound, you
walls.
can go a little bit.
Sky was mid.
Mid.
Yeah, you're good.
So Padiwan explained exactly what he wanted Sammy to do in this situation, right? It should be easy enough. However, you'll notice even though when the concept is communicated and feels simple, in execution sometimes it's not going to always feel 100% comfortable to the player. Notice how it takes Sammy a second to adapt to this sort of thing. And no, this isn't because Sammy is bad, this is actually really normal. When you're doing something you're not used to, you're going to feel uneasy about it at first. This is important to remember when you're trying to build up good habits, because they're not always going to feel comfortable to you at first. Sometimes in these lobbies, when the enemy team is 5-man pushing locations all the time, it can actually be as easy as you don't hear anything, push up and take that territory. Notice how after Sammy takes this area though, he realizes that the enemies are pushing through towards mid and he doubles back to play A main. This is a super advantageous position, and because the enemies don't expect him to already be pushed up, he actually finds a good kill onto an unsuspecting target. The problem with this kill though is that he's given away his position and he only got 1 kill out of it. What's the difference between Sammy getting a kill like this and him getting a kill like this? Well, there's not really any big difference. Both of these kills are just 1 for 1, and that's sort of the problem. Sammy had a good position here, but he only came up with 1 kill. So what's Patty's take on that?
So I would wait for a planter to plant there, because when a planter plants, you can get 2
That's a
kills.
free
You can
kill,
kill.
yeah.
You can get 1 next to her, and then you can get the planter kill as well. So I would wait for a plant there. And another thing, there's like this very common situation where you're peeking an angle. You don't want to be close to the wall, like right in front of you. So when you peeked, you're right next to the wall, literally right next to it. So you want to back up away from the wall farthest away you can. You don't want to be close to walls.
Don't be right there. Just be like a little over there.
This is a really good example of a situation where Sammy came up with 1 kill, but he could have come up with a lot more. And if he just waited for the bomb plant like Patty said, or rather than peeking the angle close, he peeked it further away to increase his angle advantage, these seem like small changes that he could have made, but they make a massive difference in the long run. Let's talk about another issue that we noticed in Sammy's play though, and that's sometimes playing far too afraid. Many players have this issue in Valorant where they just want to play far too slow, and it can end up costing them rounds. And notice how sometimes when Sammy was playing, Padiwan would even have to be pretty encouraging to get him to push up. Notice how Padiwan points out that even though Sammy maybe is making the correct decision of not pushing the Reyna, because his teammates are making the incorrect decision of pushing him, it now makes it the correct decision to push him. If that makes sense. Alright, let me explain it better. You have two things that are true in this situation. The first is that it's a 4v1 and you don't have to push them. It's probably the best not to push them. The second is that when your teammates take fights, it's probably best to take fights with them. So we have two conflicting things that you can't do at the same time. Either you help your teammate or you play back and play safe. In this situation, it's better to help your teammate than it is to make the theoretical best decision, because you can't control your teammates and they're going to go get themselves killed anyway, so it's at least better that you get something off of it. But this wasn't the only example where Paddy had to encourage Sammy to go in. Take a look at this round that happened to be a little bit more messy on offense. Notice how again in this round, it takes him a little bit more encouragement to get him to push out of A main, and again this isn't because Sammy is a bad player, it's because oftentimes players don't realize actually how safe it might be to push out. Because Sammy uses his flash here and it doesn't get shot out right away, this means that if he pushes out here, as long as he doesn't extend past the eye, anyone who would see him there will be blinded. Once he pushes out past the eye, he will expose himself to new angles, but this should absolutely be enough to get him outside of A main. Just understanding when you're safe to push out is something that so many players struggle with, and it's important to recognize what your utility accomplishes when you're using it. Sammy was safe to push up here and he didn't even realize it. But I want to also showcase a bit more of Paddy's coaching during this round here, because this was probably one of the most hands-on rounds that they had, and there's actually so much to break down from it.
You have your teammates next to you, so just flash out and push. And the Viper should not be here.
I have the spike.
Yeah, and just flash, go in.
Feeling safe.
Stunning.
Check your left. Go, 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 go. Should be going in.
Yes.
Yeah, just hold that right side for her. Okay, no, you don't have to hold it anymore.
If you.
And
Behind,
flank.
Oh my god, continue.
Good kill.
If you.
Nice.
Spike down A.
Close back.
Oh my god, my aim.
So you're doing
trying
really
to, I
good
got
as far as like knowing where people are, but in
Once more into
Valorant
battle.
we can't hold like
I'm
that
not
in like
tired.
the middle
Are
of
you?
nowhere. You need to be next to something where like if you do mess up your shots like that, you have a way to get out.
Get out and
Wait,
reload and try again, yeah.
So take a look at the rest of this round. Notice how after Sammy exits out of A main, Paddy tells him to hold the box on the right side of sight so that nobody can peek out and kill his teammates. Sammy is playing a supportive role here because of the positioning that he took. Then, immediately after his team clears the box, Paddy tells him to look somewhere else because nobody can approach that angle anymore. This is something many of you will probably find yourself doing in your games, and that's watching areas that have already been cleared. It's funny because holding this box for his teammates is something that most players probably wouldn't do in the first place, but looking away immediately after his team clears it as well is probably something that most players won't do either. So it's all about having the knowledge of when you should be holding things, and then remembering to turn your attention somewhere else once they're cleared. But the other thing that Paddy comments on in this round is how Sammy gets upset about his aim at the end of the clip, but the problem isn't really his aim, the problem had to do with his positioning. Players miss shots, those things happen, but the problem is because of where Sammy positioned himself, he had nowhere to fall back to after missing those shots. If he had just stepped back 2 feet, he would have been able to strafe back into shop, but because he decided to stand in the middle of nowhere, he had no other option but to spray and pray. These aren't easy rounds to win, but by positioning slightly different and playing just a little bit more aggressively here, these rounds could be so much different. But let's talk a little bit more about positioning, because overall that seemed to be a bigger problem in this VOD than anything. You've probably heard that your goal in Valorant should always be to isolate angles and create 1v1s for yourself. It's a lot easier to have good crosshair placement when you can only be peeked from one location, and you should constantly be thinking about how you can position yourself to create these scenarios. Notice how in this clip, just positioning slightly different would give Sammy a huge advantage here. See, because of the way Sammy moved after getting flashed here, he actually backs himself into a position where he exposed himself to a ton of angles. Rather than if he backed up towards the wall on stairs and crouched, he actually would have only had one location that he was exposed to. This is the difference between Sammy having to do this and having to do this after the flash. And this difference could easily result in Sammy actually not only living in this situation, but also coming out with a kill here. Stuff like this is actually incredibly important in Valorant, and it may seem like we're being nitpicky here, but so often in Valorant, the smallest things are the difference between a player dying 2 seconds into the round, or that player popping off and getting 3 to 4 kills. These were just a few of the things that Patty and Sammy went over in their game today though. And remember though, if you wanted to see the rest of this VOD with Patty's coaching, as well as the recap that they did in the game afterwards, this is all available on the website, so be sure to check that out in the description below. We also offer a rank improvement guarantee, so if you don't feel like you get the value you're looking for out of it, the service is literally no risk. Come join over 500,000 satisfied members, improve that KDA, and get the rank that you've always wanted at SkillCapped.com. Link in the description below. As always, we here at SkillCapped want to thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.